Let's bring in our special guest. You guys, you know who it is. Every single Wednesday, Mr. John Maakaron, one of the best in the city, best in the state, covers the Detroit Lions. Sports Illustrated, Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated. You can check it out for all your Detroit Lions news, updates, and listen to the podcast as well, because John's spitting every single week. Yeah, he spits on this show a lot, but he's doing his other stuff as well. Okay. This is brought, as always, by BetUS. Please welcome Mr. John Maakaron. John, what's going on?
Fellas, what's happening? How's it going? Also, give me the follow at Detroit Podcast, where you get some insider news. If you were there Friday, you saw that the DOC, the only reporter who said, hey, check out the great name John with an H, John Morton. Keep this name at the forefront of your attention. He's perfect. I was told that. I researched it, and it ended up being that's the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator. So it's an interesting time. Seems like the Lions fan base is panicking, kind of showing themselves a little bit not used to the NFL world plucking their coaches. It's an intriguing time right now for sure.
So, John, I feel like we have so much to catch up with you about. Like, I guess I'll start with Kelvin Sheppard. I'll start with him. Okay, Kelvin Sheppard. I think we had this conversation with you, and my big thing, John, was my worry was having a rookie coordinator. Obviously, you don't have both rookie coordinators, but I always figured it was going to be on the offensive side of the ball, given Dan's more offensive-minded. I thought defensively they would go get someone a little more proven, but Kelvin Sheppard's now the defensive coordinator. It's official. What do you make of the hire, and what do you really expect out of Kelvin this year with this defense?
Yeah, very much well expected. It was intriguing too. By the end of the year, we know that the media availability for the Lions coaches is going to start to slow down. You don't know who's going to end up lining up. So when we had a chance to talk to Kelvin Sheppard, I asked him directly, are you ready to be a defensive coordinator? And his answer was spot on, perfect. And he indicated that, hey, I'm being mentored. I get the opportunity to speak in front of the guys. And later that day, I spoke to Jack Campbell, Ezekiel Turner, spoke to Jamal Adams. And you can check out that feature that Christian and I did where we just basically said, hey, Kelvin Sheppard's ready. And then the next day, Aaron Glenn really kind of talked about how he groomed Kelvin Sheppard to be the guy. Look, he fits the criteria. Former player, relates, and is a tough-nosed coach. I think he'll relate. I think he's going to be it's a smooth transition. It's going to be a version of Aaron Glenn's defense. So you get that continuity, you get the respect of the players. And I just think that when you listen to him, man, he's passionate, knowledgeable, and I think he brings that grit that Dan Campbell's going to like. But he's got a tall task, because that defensive line's got to do a lot more than they did in the second half of the year. You have some question marks in the secondary. Who's going to replace potentially Carlton Davis if he leaves? And you got to figure out how are you going to mix in Amik Robertson next year in regards to what role he has if Ifeatu Melifonwu comes back, how that slots out. But look, the one thing that you can guarantee is those linebackers are going to be coached up. And I expect another jump from Jack Campbell, who had a great second year. I expect Alex Anzalone. And if Derek Barnes does return, I expect the defense to probably, when we start talking about the draft, when we know Uno goal number one, no doubt about it. Even Brad Holmes knows it. Everybody in the chat knows it. When you revamp the defensive line, I think that Kelvin Sheppard is going to put a nice touch to this defensive line. I think the underrated addition of Casey Rogers, too, will make this defense flow.
I interrupted the doc to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, and that is BetUS. You can head over to BetUS right now and get in on the Super Bowl, which, again, you guys have already know how I feel about it. The last time I spoke to you guys about my Super Bowl prediction, it was the Chiefs and the Eagles. Now I'm picking the Chiefs to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. It's even money. I love it. I'm going to go ahead and lock my bet in, and you can as well, because BetUS is offering you 150% on your first 3 deposits for the Crunch Time Sports community. All you have to do is head over there, use the promo code YouTube150, and get in on the deal. Head over to BetUS, and shout out to them for sponsoring the video. Now, let's get back to the doc.
Hey, Doc, I love what you said there, because I brought it back the other day, the hashtag edge to the D, the Booner path to 3.0, but the edge to the D 2.0 this offseason. That is going to be That's going to be the theme of this offseason. We've seen a lot of different ones. We've seen the Booner path. We've seen draft the cocaine. We're going to see edge to the D this summer, and that's what it's going to be, and it better happen. But I do want to ask you, Doc, we'll get into players and drafts and all of that throughout the show. I want to stick just with the coordinators. I know you just talked about Kelvin there, but John Morton, I want to get your thought process on this, because I had an argument with Klotz. To where Klotz was a little bit more questionable, saying, hey, you probably shouldn't have done that. You should have gone with Tanner, which I think is very, very thoughtful. And when we argued at the time, Tanner wasn't going to New York. So I changed my mind a little bit on it. Do you think this is going to work out? I know he was here in 2022. My argument was he was here in 2022 with Jared and Ben when they revamped that offense through that period when Jared kind of took that next step. Do you think that has anything to do with it? And how do you think he'll work with Jared? And is there going to be a regression in the offense?
Yeah, it's actually a very interesting segue to talk about John Morton, who I put everybody on alert to look for. But I was kind of scrolling the socials and waiting to see if anybody would acknowledge it. I literally said he's a perfect fit. Now, I was told that. I researched that. I saw the quotes first about everybody. So I was waiting for Booner or Jeff or somebody to dig a little further. It didn't happen till Sunday. The national media caught wind of what was going on. I had
gotta send those to me, Doc.
Yeah,
text me. If you find a big story, you gotta text. If you want it to hit the airwaves, you gotta. I'll make sure it gets out into the National Football League.
Oh, okay. No. It was good because people then caught wind that I put it in an article and it did just fine. Listen, I just put the information. If you like it, you like it. But one guy who called the offensive coordinator, you're looking at him. So I had like I said, I said, hey, keep an eye out for John Morton. He's perfect. He fits the criteria. Keep an eye out for John Morton. And here's why. Here's why he was a perfect fit. Why the sources and all the people that you do the research with tell you, look, he's done all the jobs. Now, I know everybody had the angst about the Jets. That's an outlier. When you work with the Jets, there's a given that organization is defunct, and you're working with Josh McCown and talent that, hey, no coach in the world is going to uplift the Jets. And if you don't have a philosophical alignment with the coach, then clearly the issues popped up. And that's a time where, hey, at the time, maybe not the best fit for John Morton. But remember, the Lions hired him in 2022. So you remember he did interview in the past for the offensive coordinator spot. So he's had opportunities with the Lions, and then he spent the year in Detroit. Here's why it's going to work, guys. He's an offensive mastermind. He understands the concepts. Part of the reason why he spent the year with the Lions is also to work with Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell, as well, to install an offense that had a lot of pre-snap motion, lots of route trees that enhanced the work of the wide receivers. It didn't just happen. It's not happenstance that Amon-Ra St. Brown has developed nicely in the system. And then he's been everywhere. He's got a lot of experience. He's served a lot of roles. Doesn't have necessarily a lot of experience play calling per se, but the installs of calls and concepts, he's worked with Dan Campbell, worked with Sean Payton. So there's alignment there. In terms of, remember too, guys, Dan Campbell always is pretty much forthright and honest. And he told the media directly that he doesn't really want to change the terminology too much, and he's going to seek input from Jared Goff. So I thought that once you saw and read kind of what was said about John Morton from the Lions in the past and from the work that he did this year with the Broncos, it was pretty clear that besides me just saying, hey, this is the next offensive coordinator, knowing that he was going to get an opportunity, hey, I thought it's a good fit. Look, his age, I know people are like, well, how much of a downgrade is it going to be? It's not. Because here's the thing. The Jimmies and the Joes on this roster will make John Morton shine. And I do think that you also got to remember that Dan Campbell will have input in this offense no matter what. And I do think that John Morton will come in and enhance the skills of Jared Goff and make sure, look at that. When you look at the numbers, the players that have worked with John Morton have shined. And you can also just take a look at the Broncos. Bo Nix really was one of the players that didn't play. He did a really good job of working with Bo Nix. So I know people don't know his name. You would have if you followed me. But you recognize that this is somebody that when I say he's a perfect fit with Dan Campbell, literally he has the vision that Dan Campbell's going to want to instill, which is, hey, run the ball, establish the run, use play action, put every single person in the position to succeed. And look, there'll still, I think, be a little bit of flash and dash for this offense for entertainment purposes. But listen, John Morton will be just fine running the Detroit Lions offense. Why? Because that offense is legitimately stacked with talent all over the place.
Doc, I just want to confirm something you said real quick. Did you say John Morton helped build this offense in 2022?
No, he was.
Okay, glad to hear that.
Offensive assistant. He worked with Tanner Engstrand. He helped to install some of the concepts in regards to working with Ben Johnson as well.
People needed to hear that.
Senior offensive assistant, and he definitely was in the mix there in a lot of the meetings. Spent a year in Detroit, and definitely helped out before getting back to Denver.
Yeah,
people needed to hear that.
Hey, hold on, Boone. Hold on. So we went down this thing of why John Morton was so good. And it's because he's been everywhere. I mean, Doc, he's been everywhere. He's been at the Frankfurt Galaxy. He's been at the University of San Diego, been at the NFL, but he's consistently been nowhere. He's consistently developed nothing. Now, I'm not saying that this dude's going to be terrible. I'm not saying that. I don't think he's going to hold back this offense. But when you talk about the perfect fit, like the perfect fit, in my opinion, is a guy who has proven something on paper for more than 1 or 2 years. Like they let him walk out the door. If he was so valuable to building this offense, in my opinion, you don't let him walk out the door. And if he was so impactful to a rookie in Bo Nix, you don't let him walk out the door. So that's where it's just like, I get when everybody tells me the things of why John Morton is so good, and at the same time scares the shit out of me, because in all the situations he's walked away or been fired. Every one of them, collegiate, UFL, NFL, you name it. He hasn't stuck anywhere. That's why it's like, okay, when I think of John Morton, I don't think of the future OC for the Detroit Lions in the long run. And most likely now that you're losing or you're hiring John Morton, there's a good chance you lose Tanner Engstrand, who is supposed to be the future OC of the future the future OC for the Detroit Lions going forward. So it's like you bring in John Morton, but at what expense?
By the way, he played for Frankfurt. He didn't coach there.
Listen, Klotz, I respect your questioning it, and I saw online that you were. And as you're right, you have a right to do that. But remember that Tanner Engstrand was somebody that spent a year working with John Morton, and everything that Tanner Engstrand knows, John Morton already knows, and he's got more experience. Here's the thing. Tanner Engstrand is young, and he's in his 40s, and I think he'll succeed. But at this point in time, you recognize that would you put 2 brand new first-time coordinators when the history of the NFL says that one NFL team or 2 with 2 first-time coordinators have ever won the Super Bowl? I think the sheer level of experience and the alignment, and also, too, when you say, well, why did everybody walk? Kind of the reason why the Lions have been successful is a lot of guys are brought in off the streets that maybe don't fit other teams or other roles. But here in Detroit, in a collaborative effort, I think it's going to be hard to fail. Look at it like this. All right. You have an offensive line that's tailor-made with a couple tweaks, 2 solid running backs. You have Jared Goff in the prime of his career, and then you have all this talent on offense. Now, you have all spring. The concepts are not going to change. So, in essence, they're running the same offense. And remember that Ben Johnson evolved in this offense working with Dan Campbell. So it's not just John Morton doing everything. Dan Campbell is going to be involved. So if you have doubts, you're kind of indicating that, hey, all those hours he's going to spend working with Dan Campbell, putting together this offense and putting together a game plan is going to flop. I don't think so. I think you're going to see numbers galore. And guys, football is not rocket scientists. You're going to need a younger, a little bit offensive line. You want to run the football, and you want to run it effectively to give Jared Goff the opportunity to find open receivers. And you're going to get a better Jamison Williams. I expect him to get another 1,000 yards. The one thing that we'll talk about is I think a revamped coaching staff, kind of his new voices, new fresh ideas. And I think if you get an improved Sam Laporta and you upgrade at certain spots, this offense should continue. What are you scared about? That he's going to make the wrong calls? I think that, you can definitely maybe kind of assume that maybe that first month of the season, the trial period, but that's what training camp, You got now, from the time he starts the job, probably now, until August. You don't think acclimating, working with Dan Campbell, working with that offense is going to cause such a dip? But I respect your concerns that at the highest level, when the moment's the brightest, hey, 3rd down and 1, you could do no worse. I don't think John Morton's going to run an empty set and throw the football. I don't think that's going to.
That was my one
I don't think
contingency, Doc.
in a critical moment down 10,
I'm
I
happy,
don't
man,
think
if he does
he's going to call Jamison Williams throwing the football. So
Sounds like
maybe
Klotz should like this
just
hire.
some veteran leadership will
Oh,
help this offense and a little bit more of a commitment to the run.
oh,
And basically, I'm going to say this. With John Morton, Jahmyr Gibbs will have the first or second best numbers in the entire NFL next year.
whoa, Klotzy.
Boone, let's not.
How about that,
plug and
Klotz?
play
You should
me,
love John
and
Morton.
you hand it to Jahmyr. He does.
You're out
look
here
at why
bad-
he got fired from
you're
the
handing
Jets
out
because he
bad
wasn't run the
facts.
ball.
He
Hold
didn't
on,
coach
hold
for
on.
Toronto. He didn't coach for Toronto.
Under John Morton, but I think
He
either
played
way,
for
you're not
Toronto, the
stopping Jahmyr
Aquanauts.
Gibbs, to your point, Doc. Like, well said. I agree. I think you're bringing up good points. I just question the hire. I see the alignment, but I question, is he the actual guy to call the shots? But we'll see. Time will tell. Time will tell. There's no definitive answer as of right now.
So, Doc, you think this offense will get right back to where they were last year? Pretty similar?
Absolutely. Fourth best. They were the 4th best scoring offense last year. They'll continue. And guys, remember too, everyone's going to get better. What would lead you to believe Amon-Ra St. Brown's not going to come back pissed? Jamison Williams getting a taste of success, 1,000 yards. He's going to be challenged now to be the number 1. You got 2 great running backs. Jahmyr Gibbs is only going to get better. He's going to be even more explosive. Now, you just have to tinker with the offensive line. Most people assume Mahogany will take the right spot. I mean, I'm not worried if they sign or don't sign Kevin Zeitler. I think that you can find a young offensive lineman or a veteran a little bit younger in free agency. You plug that in, you got 5 great starters, and now you just continue to run the football, play action with Goff, and this offense is going to score a lot of points. I just don't see them regressing, especially if you add a young draft pick at wide receiver, you add another tight end, you add some veterans along the offensive line. I just think that this offense, with the talent, and Ben Johnson said it, and I agree, it's ready-made. Go out there, call the plays, and take advantage of mismatches. It's not rocket scientist. Run the football. And listen, you got the best right tackle in the NFL. Run the football, play action with Jared Goff, limit the turnovers, and in critical moments, 3rd down and 1, just run the football, smash mouth. And hey, there'll be some adjustments too as well. And remember, guys, okay, it's a team effort. And just as Dan Campbell always tells me, John, it's not just about one guy, Jared Goff. Remember, as everybody leaves, Hank Fraley stays, key member of that offensive staff that's coveted, interviewed for an offensive coordinator position. His role is, don't understate the role that that Hank Fraley does have. And there's no guarantee that Tanner Engstrand leaves. Yeah, I think he's the favorite. I think he's the odds-on favorite and would be smart to take a coordinator position. But, you know, until the ink is dry, he's still a member of the Detroit Lions offensive staff. But you still have continuity. You got Seth Ryan, who's been there. You have names that you could bring on board that can help this offense as well. So in Dan, you should trust, because remember, okay, guys, I want to say this. Dan is the true offensive mastermind of the Detroit Lions. Now, when I say mastermind, I'm talking about ins and outs, X's and O's, knows every position left and right along the offense. You don't think he learned from Sean Payton the ins and outs of the experience of how to run an offense and the X's and O's and the concepts? Guys, it's just a version of Dan Campbell. And the thing you should worry about is, okay, how do the play calls align at certain times in games? But guys, as long as Dan Campbell is patrolling the sidelines, things will be more than okay. Now, the part that I would say more worry about is the defense, because you get besieged with injuries. It could be a problem in the playoffs. Defense wins championships.
Well, I want to ask, because the reason why I asked that question, Doc, is because of my next question. We talked if Goff will have a similar year than this year and be an MVP candidate. Do you think the offense will still be top of the league? Goff's coming off a rough game. People all of a sudden out on him for some reason, some Lions fans. Do you think he runs it back and he's an MVP candidate next season like he was this season?
Yeah, look, Man, he's got, I can't wait to talk to him again to see kind of just really what happened against the Commanders. He got rocked by Luvu. Clearly that impacted him. It just was a terrible game. It puts it out there again that, hey, if Jared goes off and is the guy that we saw with the Rams, it's just going to be hard pressed to win games against the best of the best teams. He's got to play his best football. I know he'll be chomping at the bit. He's resilient. And so the question mark will always remain with Jared Goff in the biggest of biggest moments, with the top end defensive lineman coming down at him, ready to take him out. How does he play? He's a 500 quarterback in the postseason. He did get Detroit 2 wins last year, but this last performance, you're only judged by your last performance, and it was awful. But I think he comes back and gets better. I think he's great against the blitz. He knows he's getting better at recognizing all forms of defenses. He's got the prime experience, going to be 30 years old, entering 31. I just think that when you look at Jared Goff, you can win a lot of regular season games. It's just making sure that in the postseason, you limit the mistakes, you make the throws when you need to, and you kind of take the reins off of them a little bit and run that football early and often. And I think everybody saw that when you're facing the Commanders and they're the 30th ranked run defense, you kind of got to do what the Eagles did with Saquon Barkley. You got to execute, you got to play well, and you got to have those turnovers go your way. And I think, remember too, guys, they fell flat on their face. They fell flat on their face in the biggest stage possible. They'll come back and they'll motivate themselves to win a lot of games. Not 15, but I think they'll be, double-digit wins, 11, 12 wins. They'll get out there. They'll compete at a high level. And remember too, guys, Brad Holmes knows that 24 class didn't have as much impact as maybe that the team would have wanted. But I'll say this, it's not a bust. It's still too early. It's still too early. You got to wait a couple of years to fully assess a draft class. But the 24 draft class could have helped a lot more. And the Eagles are proof is in the pudding. They got a little bit more output out of DeJean and their rookies and Mitchell than the Lions did.
Yeah, Doc, I do want to ask you, outside of the Lions, obviously Ben Johnson in Chicago, I think we actually chatted about it briefly, but now that like his staff's kind of getting filled out, what are your thoughts on that? How do you think Chicago looks going forward with Ben Johnson? We got to see his opening press conference, and there are some people who might have said, hey, a little iffy, didn't look like a guy that can kind of lead a football team and lead men, football players to go win football games. What are your thoughts on that? How do you think Ben will do in Chicago?
Yeah, he's smart, dude. And it's so true. It's so wild to think about that. People were a little bit skeptical of Albert Breer in Sports Illustrated when he said, he put out there on a radio station, hey, Ben likes Chicago. He wanted that job last year. And it was so wild to see the photos then emerge of him vacationing there all the time in Chicago. He loves that town. It's a great fit for him. And he wanted a roster that had talent. And I think that he'll work well with Ryan Poles. I think that it might take time. I think that Ben Johnson now, yeah, I do think that, here's the thing too, that Dan Campbell said is that he put them through, and guys, I know that everybody's upset and they're looking at the Lions getting rated and it's not, what's up with Dan Campbell? What's up with this coaching staff? Dan Campbell groomed these two gentlemen to get jobs. All right. He literally told the media directly that they would have these meetings and they would go through all these scenarios. Now it's smart for Dan because now he also knows what Ben thinks. So I think it's sophisticated, but he went through scenarios and they would talk ball just like how we're talking and exploring. They would do the same thing in these game plan meetings. They would say, okay, this situation, what would you do? What kind of thoughts would you have? What play call would you run? So Dan he paid it forward. And that's what makes Dan one of the guys you can root for, is that he understood that, hey, there's talent there with Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. They were going to be head coaches. And he put them in the spot to question, what would you do here? How would you align this? What would you try here? In a lot of different scenarios. So to me, if you question Ben Johnson, and I know, look, the competitor in me says F him, and I hope he flops. And yeah, of course. But now talking with my brain, he's going to shine because he comes from the Dan Campbell tree. And I can't speak highly enough of what Dan Campbell does as a head coach. And I think Aaron Glenn as well, even with the Jets, talk the talk, we'll walk the walk, but maybe not playoff bound in 24, 8, 9 wins, 10 wins, you get back up there. I don't think you're going to have, 10 game losing streaks with Ben Johnson. Number one thing is you're going to align with Caleb Williams. You get them moving, and you probably need one more running back to align with DeAndre Swift, a little bit more of a home run threat, and you got the pieces in place at wide receiver. So they'll win games, and they have the benefit of playing a last place schedule. That's a benefit, guys. Remember, they don't play the toughest of tough opponents in moving forward in 24. So that gives them a chance to have wins. Now, Aaron Glenn, that's tough, man. The AFC East is brutal, and you got quarterbacks galore to deal with. So I think it might take him a little bit longer to get settled, but when they do, if he takes Tanner Engstrand, a first-time coordinator, I think Steve Wilkes was a great hire. When they do, Aaron Glenn will bring the Jets a winner. And it just goes to show you, though, can they elevate to be world champion? My assessment would be Ben Johnson would have the first crack at a ring before Aaron Glenn.
And Doc, it pains me to ask you this question just because we're still technically in the NFL season, but the Lions, they have the 28th overall draft pick. And now we're kind of transitioning into off-season talk. Just your approach on that first round pick. How do you think Brad Holmes should approach it as far as position goes, or do you think they should trade up, trade out? How do you think that first round pick should be spent this year following this kind of collapse of a season in the divisional round?
Yeah, no, it's wild, man. And just to give my thoughts on it, I immediately, last week was a little bit lighter around Wednesday, Thursday last week. I think after we spoke, started turning on the college tape. It wasn't doing anything for me. I was like, this shit's boring me, man. I don't want to watch college tape. I just watched the college football playoff, just watched a whole season of NFL football, tape after tape, game after game. My mind was overloaded, but I'm going through, watching the tape, watching some of the thoughts and going through some of the ideas. And Christian did a mock draft at Lions on SI, and Daniel Jeremiah did one. And now it's like, just like that, we're at the draft now. And my mind was just like, man, I just wish the Senior Bowl was next week and give everybody a couple weeks off to just kind of decompress as your team gets eliminated. But I can't sit here and lie to you guys and say, hey, let's go get offensive linemen. To me, Brad could do anything. Brad, if he does his homework, he could get a wide receiver, he could get a running back, tight end, quarterback. You got to roll with it because they do their due diligence. But me, Doc, you got to find the best edge rusher. It's clear you dropped the ball. Marcus Davenport, if directly Brad Holmes were to talk to me, I'd say, hey, you took a risk on Marcus Davenport, didn't work. James Houston, you tried to develop him, that didn't work. Those are negatives on your record. You got to get the edge rusher. You got to get the best. And actually, it was crazy. I was working out today, and I was just done, and I was thinking, okay, how would I frame this question to Brad Holmes? I say, look, I know your philosophy is just go get a Detroit Lion, somebody that's gritty, tough, football IQ, loves life, loves to play football, sleeps, eats, breathes football, good character, all that. But what harm would it do? What change could you adapt to say, hey, if you have good coaching, why not just take best available player at the position of need? Would that really hurt your rebuild? Because to me, as I was thinking, I'm like, everybody in the whole world knows, even Lucas, everybody, even the whole chat that's listening to me talk, they all know the biggest need for the Detroit Lions is edge rusher. Would it really hurt to rank them all and say, hey, this is the best guy that we can develop and get him? Because it's such a position of need. It ruined your season. It was awful. And it was, literally, we debated it. We screamed about it. You need an edge rusher. You need an edge rusher. You need to stop Jaden Daniels. You need to stop Jalen Hurts. You need to stop Caleb Williams. So to me, I don't think, maybe you guys can change my mind, but to me, I am going to scream from the highest of heavens. Let's start researching those edge rushers. And to see Mike Green destroy the guy in the rep today, that was awesome. To see Jack Sawyer start to emerge as a player, to see these defensive edges, defensive linemen, these defensive ends do their thing. I'm going to scream for 4 months. Bring an edge rusher to play opposite of Aiden. Because
edge to the D, Doc.
Address that position, you will fail again in the postseason, and it'll be worse.
Can you help us out with that? Edge to the D.
Rusher. Edge. Everybody loves edges, right?
An edge to the D. Come on, Doc. We got to get that going here in Detroit. I need your help with that.
Edge to the D.
Edge to the D.
There you go. Go ahead, Klotz.
No,
okay, so no, I just asked Doc.
Oh,
yeah,
you did.
Jeff. It's Jeff.
Get lost in the loop there.
All right, let me ask you, Doc. You asked about the draft and what the Lions should do. I'll ask you about free agency because I saw something, and I don't know how true it is. We talked about it, but I don't want this to be like the narrative that we expect Zadarius Smith to be cut, but the Lions could save money doing it. Where are you at with Zadarius Smith's future? I feel like for the most part, more so people want him, but there's a crowd out there that's like, save the cash, go get someone else, or save it for other players. Where are you at with Zadarius's future?
Yeah, no, look, I think he's a locker room leader. I think he's got experience. I think he would work well with young players. It's tough at his age, and he kind of, I look at it like I would favor probably more him being cut. But I think either way, if he comes back next year, I know his loyalty. You see him posting all that stuff on social media. I think he's a great guy. I think he can bring something to the table. I don't think his cap number is terribly atrocious. So either way, it's going to be really up to the coaching staff. It's going to be interesting too because you recognize that he is under contract, so you can keep him. But I do think you can never have too many pass rushers. And also too, you also got to remember me sitting in there with Brad Holmes. He said that was the most complicated trade he ever put together. So that means he identified Zadarius Smith as being a fit. He identified that, hey, this is somebody that could add to our team. This is somebody we want to invest a draft pick in. Hey, let's go out there and make the trade. So would he be willing to cut him? I think that right now, 51-49 that he stays because of the fact they did so much work. And I think that he can bring something to the table in certain situations. And I just think that the mindset that he's got, I think he's one of those guys that, given an opportunity, could produce. But he's not your primary edge rusher. He's not your every down go-to defensive lineman. He's just not. He's got to be a role player. And I think he would handle that role just fine.
Hey, Doc, I do want to bring up just obviously in the offseason, we're talking draft, we're talking Zadarius. There are a lot of guys that are free agents. Carlton Davis, Ifeanyi Melifonwu, and I can go on and on, Marcus Davenport. Hey, who do you think that one, I'll ask it this way. Who are a couple of those guys who you think that they do bring back, who you feel like is a lock? And number two, who are those guys that you feel like bigger names that they move on from? I think the people are kind of interested to get a kind of feel in the building. I know you've been around. I know it's off season now, but I'm sure you have a little bit of an idea potentially. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, free agency is going to be fun, right? March is right. It's coming up quick. I do think that Carlton Davis is the beneficiary of having a couple of teams that are going to want to work with him. I definitely think that the Jets, they got DJ Reed. I was looking at their free agent list. He potentially could depart, so he could slide right in there with the Jets and work with Sauce Gardner. So I think that there's an opportunity there. It's going to be about dollars and cents. That's the thing, is that when you look at it, a lot of these guys fit. Like, I want Derek Barnes back. I want Carlton Davis back. I look at it and say Zeitler, I would be okay with moving on from. I think you have Mahogany and you can draft someone younger or go younger in free agency. So a lot of the free agents are interesting to talk about. The one, and with the free agents, it's going to come down to dollars. Like, Brad Holmes will not budge off of the number he feels is the best. Just like Steve Yzerman. They know the number. They're not going to overspend. They're going to work within the parameters, but I don't think they're going to try to outbid anybody. They'll give a fair offer. And I do think, though, the Lions are in the same boat, just like their coaches. Their players, when you win 15 games, that makes your players quite appealing. And there's a lot. And remember, as Brad Holmes is a good general manager that's responsible, well, there's a lot of bad general managers out there that want to just spend and just make that splash and win a press conference just to show that, hey, we won. We're trying. And the Jets probably might be one of them, to just try to get, some people in the building to understand Aaron Glenn's system and to build his message. So, it's going to depend. I think that the toughest decisions will be Barnes and Davis, because I do think the Jets will come calling and make some offers seriously. But the others, I think that the Lions will put in some competitive offers for a lot of those free agents. But I do think that the two that are most challenging that involve knowing what the offers will be Davis and Barnes. Now the question mark's going to be, do you bring back Tim Patrick? He was good, but you could also upgrade. You could make the splash. You could say, hey, let's go get a legit number 2-3 receiver out there, make a splash. But I do think he's consistent. He's valuable. At the same token, I'm curious to see what they think about Khalif Raymond. Does he end up staying on the roster? Some of the other guys as well. But Tim Patrick is a name to pay attention to because he did okay. He started to emerge. And I think the name that you're seeing in the chat could be somebody special to bring in here too to compete. But he's going to blow out he's going to demand a super high price. And I think he's still going to stay with the Bengals. T. Higgins is somebody that I've had on my fantasy team. You always know that he's the boss and he could play great. He'd make Jared look great as well, but I think he stays with the Bengals.
Do you think J-Mo gets an extension, Doc?
Now, I'm going to play hardball here. I go Aiden, no doubt about it. You know that you hope that clearly he returns. I play hardball, and I go big money contract to Hutch, and I go 5th-year option for J-Mo and just make him earn it one more year. Because remember, he just had that now 1 year of 1,000 yards. You have seen mistakes. I am not ready yet still to give him 4 years, $80 million for his services. I want him just to stay under the 1st-year contract and the 5th year and let him earn it one more time. And let's see if he can put together 17 strong games in one season, no distractions. And then in the postseason, when it's a run pass option, you run that football. I don't care if your wide receiver is wide ass open. You use that speed. Your money's in your speed, not in your arm. I don't care if you get yelled at by the coaches. I don't care if Amon-Ra's 15 yards free. You're Jamison Williams. You run that ball, and you take the tongue lashing from the coaching staff. You use that speed because nobody can catch you.
Hey, Doc. I agree with you with J-Mo. We kind of got in a debate about that. But when you look ahead, you want J-Mo to produce next year. Obviously, that'd be good for the Lions offense. Lions offense was great this year, won the division. Do you think that this Lions team as a whole is going to repeat win the division? And kind of like a two-part question off of that. If they lose it and they're not the NFC North champions, do you think that there's a chance that the Bears are the worst to first team going into next year?
Yeah, you look at it, your chat's bringing a lot of smart comments today. I'm really proud of them that they brought their A game. Look, it's a good problem to have, Tyler. If J-Mo balls out and is going to cost you $30 million, that means he's got like 1,200 yards, 125 catches, and 15 touchdowns. And that's what I hinted at to Ben Johnson in one of his last pressers. I said, how do you get him now to be the number 1 wide receiver, like truly like Justin Jefferson style? And he said, another offseason, developing, working, no distractions. So that's a good problem to have. If he's earned $30 million a year, if it's not with the Lions, hey, you make a decision, guys. Okay, remember too. I love and the one thing that's fair and fun, and the reason why Lions NSI writes a lot of stories about former Lions and former coaches and former Lions across the league. You guys are very loyal to the athletes at hand. And I respect that. And sometimes that gets you guys mad at me because I am not that way. I am the general manager running Lions on SI. So I look at it just like a general, and that's what I hope you guys recognize. I view players as being kind of dispensable. So I love the players. I respect them greatly. But I come at it from the perspective of if I can find similar production cheaper, I love to do that. I run it like a general manager's mind. So guys, the position that is stocked full of talent year in, year out is wide receiver. You could find the next J-Mo. Maybe not as fast, maybe not as explosive, but the wide receiver pool is deep and deeper. These dudes are flying. You can find another J-Mo. So I wouldn't care if he left somewhere else. It would be just fine. You could find somebody else and or just wait for Jeremiah Smith one more year and or figure out whenever he's eligible, get him and you'll be just fine. Or just, hey, Ohio State, tell me the guys you're recruiting. Okay, fine. We'll wait for them. Just keep plucking them one after another. They just are a wide receiver factory. So guys, remember that certain players, when they leave, Brad Holmes will restock them with great players. What we're talking about is next level is, can the Lions, when they get to the postseason, I'll bring it up, Are they the next Bills? Are they the Detroit Bills? They just get there every year and never advance. That's the part we got to get to, is what's that fine line of getting to the postseason and advancing. And a lot of people will say quarterback. I say ride Jahmyr Gibbs, but I do think the Lions are going to be competing strong for the division. You know how much emphasis Brad and Dan put on winning division games. They just went 6-0 in the toughest division ever assembled. They won every game. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen again, but I think they'll be competing strong. I think the Bears will be better. I do think maybe the Vikings could take a step back. So I would rank it right now. I would rank it the Lions, the Bears, the Packers, and the Vikings. And the Packers have to show that they can play well special teams wise and execute, and Jordan Love bring down those turnovers. But to me, the Lions are the class of the division, and the Bears are moving up. I don't see them going worst to first. I see them competing, winning a lot of games. But the Detroit Lions, until someone knocks them off, until I see a roster that gives me a lot of question marks, you have two needs: left guard and edge rusher and some depth. But remember, we could spend 2 hours talking about how great Branch is going to get better. He's going to look to kind of improve on that second half that kind of dipped a little bit. Kirby Joseph could have easily 10 interceptions. You got a lot of good things. You expect a big jump from Terrion Arnold and Jack Campbell. Alex Anzalone, I think, is great where he's at. So you got a lot of pieces. But where you got to kind of tinker is maybe the interior of the defensive line and a couple of depth spots along the offensive line. But I know we're still raw after them losing, but guess what? It's hype season, and I can lead the hype train, no doubt about it. There's a lot of good reasons to celebrate the Detroit Lions. Where we get the part where we're going to get into the nitty-gritty is, can this football team advance 4 games if needed to win a Super Bowl? God, it's tough. And Dan put it out there. It's tough. I don't think my little heart can handle what's going on with the Bills. Like I told my cousin today on the podcast, our 600th Doc and Jock. I said today, man, can we handle sustained success but not winning? What does that do to the dynamic with Dan? What does that do? Like, can we handle division loss, NFC title loss? Can you remember, guys, not too in the distant past, the Eagles with Andy Reid always getting to the NFC Championship, falling short. Andy Reid leaves the Eagles and has this epic run with the Chiefs. I don't want that storyline with the Lions, but it's closer to that than thinking that the Lions are Super Bowl caliber, because the AFC is sick. The NFC is getting stronger. So where we're going to debate over the next year is, how do these Lions get over the hump to win a Super Bowl when the wizard in the AFC is getting all the calls and has all the refs in his pocket with the Kansas City Chiefs and the best coaching staff ever assembled in the history of coaching, with Matt Nagy and Spagnuolo and Andy Reid? That trio together is just effing amazing. My God, that many times in the Super Bowl, going for a chance for a three-peat. But just doing the early research, I'm kind of leaning toward the Eagles, but the magic of the Chiefs is just sick because of Mahomes. But no, Bears, guys, calm down. Don't get bricked up about the Bears. Get bricked up about the Lions. The Lions.
Well, Doc, let me go to the chat because we got some questions here that I think are great questions. We'll start with Marco, Scratch Golf Show. He says, can you ask Doc if he thinks Brunell's leaving for New York too? Because he was rumored first, Doc, Mark Brunell.
Yeah, I think they have a close relationship with and here's the tough part too. A lot of times too, there's a lot of that posturing where the agents will take opportunities to hear other offers so that you get more money with your own team. If you ask me, I think that Mark Brunell stays in Detroit. I think he's firmly entrenched with Goff. Goff is very loyal. Goff is a guy that likes things particular. I think that Mark Brunell definitely is somebody that he works with and connects with at a deeper level. But a name that to pay attention to is, I can't believe how fast David Blau is working through the coaching ranks 1 year in Washington, and he's getting opportunities with the Bears, Jaguars, Jets. So I would look at that. You look at the best talent possible. Why not bring him in if Engstrand leaves? Maybe you hold off. You tell David hold off a little bit. If Engstrand leaves, you make David Blau the passing game coordinator. He's one of those guys that maybe not the most talent on the field, but his brain, his offensive propensity is off the charts. He's very smart. Guys from Purdue definitely understand how to handle things, and he knows the Detroit Lions. He would be a perfect addition to this offense if Tanner does leave. But if you ask me, I do not believe Mark Brunell is leaving for the Jets.
We have two couple more questions. Josh asked, John, any thoughts on who will be the next wide receiver coach?
Yeah, I think somebody that's been on the staff, I think they elevate Seth Ryan. I think J-Mo, when I asked him what the impact was of Randall L. and Seth Ryan, he said Seth Ryan helped him so much with route running. And the wild story about that is I met Seth in Kansas City, and it was so unusual that he didn't recognize me and I didn't recognize him. So we were in Kansas City, and my wife is taking photos, and we're posing in Kansas City and all that. And all of a sudden, Coach Ryan and his wife are there, and his wife is so sweet. She's like, "Oh, do you guys want a picture together?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no problem." So she's taking our photo. He's standing there, and we're starting to talk. And he's like, and I think both of us were like, kind of just in the moment, not like really listening or focusing, because he asked me, "What do you do?" I said, "I cover sports. I cover the Lions." He's like, "Okay." And I'm like, "What do you do?" He's like, "Well, I'm a coach." And I'm like, "Okay." In the NFL, I cover I work for the Lions. And then we're like nodding and just kind of talking. I'm like, "Wait a minute. Oh, you're Seth Ryan of the Lions." I'm like, "Oh, I cover the team." He's like, "Oh, okay." And then we kind of figured it out that, "Oh, okay, you work for the Lions and I cover the Lions." And we're like, we chatted it up a little bit. And the first thing I asked him, he basically predicted the Chiefs win. I said, "Y'all ready?" He's like, "Watch out. This receiving core is ready." And they went out and won the game. So that was a small little gathering I had with Seth Ryan, because I think those guys, the assistant wide receiver coach, they talk maybe once a year. So I do think he's great for the job. I think that the players would connect with him. Randall L is going to be a loss. I think that he definitely helped J-Mo develop in St. Brown. But Seth Ryan, I think the son of Rex Ryan, I think he'll firmly plant his feet in the ground and handle business.
Let's see. We got the Wheezy Diaz asked Doc, "Are you willing to move off of Reader and throw Broderick into the Wolves?"
Jesus.
To the Wolves.
Oh, now that's the other part too, is I can tell you kind of the schedule. Kind of the end of the month, I've done pretty much well. So we're kind of waiting until February to fire it all up, where we go back and look at the old stuff. But just by and large, Reader could have had a little bit more of an impact. I thought he had a good year, but I don't think Broderick's ready to where you say move off of Reader. I think that DJ Reader is a solid contributor, could do better, but I think that his year, he was out there, he was available, and the Lions were pretty stout against the run. So Broderick, his goal will be to continue to develop. And there is a question mark regarding, Casey Rogers and the consistency along the defensive line. They keep working through coaches there. I would say the guy that's going to play more probably will be Mekhi Wingo. He'll get more of an opportunity. I think that the coaching staff loves him. Terrell Williams loved him. You want to make sure that Aleem McNeil gets back healthy. But am I willing to move off a Reader? No. DJ Reader is a class act. I think that he's a great football player. Definitely another year in the system. A veteran presence will help out. I think he's great with the media. He never turned down a request. He was actually, very rare that a player will compliment the media. But he complimented me and was like, "Hey, congrats on coming here all the time." And he was a nice guy. And even when they lost, stand-up individual. You don't see that too often. When bad losses happen, players just run out as fast as humanly possible. They don't want to stand in and take the tough questions. DJ Reader earned my respect tremendously. Stood there, answered the questions, just said, "Hey, it stings. It happens in the NFL. You move forward." He handled it like a pro. And I think that you can't have too many guys that are good in the community, solid football players, guys that can mentor young people. And I think that you value the mentorship of DJ Reader. And I think you'll get more out of him. You for sure can get some solid run stuffing from DJ Reader. So at this point in time, as we talk, my answer is no.
Hey, Doc, I just want to add real quick. I got a question here for you. Around the league, a little around the NFL action, thoughts on the coaching hirings, the head coaching ones. Who do you think is going to be the best, the worst, all of that? Because there was, I think, 6 or 7 that got filled out. What are your thoughts? I know we've already heard you about the Jets and the Bears, but all the other ones, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, the Saints is a shit show, the way they operate. The Jaguars is a shit show as well, where, they get the right guy. I'm curious about Liam Cohen, but the way he handled business was a little bit unusual in regards to not communicating deeply with the team that would employ him. That's I think that he'll have an opportunity to develop Trevor Lawrence. Dallas is crazy. It's one of those deals where when everybody hates on your pick and goes, Brian Schottenheimer, why? It just kind of makes me say, hey, maybe he'll go out there and do something, but it's never good when your perception from everybody is you're Jerry Jones' puppet. And maybe they can find the glory hole of success that they need to figure it out or whatever it is that they're trying to talk about publicly. But Jerry Jones is not qualified to run that team, and they're far, far away. So to me, Schottenheimer is going to flop. And I think that if you're Dallas, why wouldn't you not go after Ben Johnson? At least go after someone bigger. So I'm not certain about that. Bears, Jets. What are some of the other openings as well? They're not coming to mind.
Raiders.
Yep. Patriots.
Vrabel will have success. That's Vrabel, Glenn. Their formula's there. You see the formula. Hey, former players that connect with players. The Raiders are so off the radar. They just kind of recycle guys. Pete Carroll's more of a culture guy. I like what he's going to do with the culture, but he's over the age of 70. And in the end, in football, coaching matters. It's very important, but what sets you up for success preliminarily is who's that quarterback. So Drake May really is going to set up. It's going to set up Mike Vrabel for success. Trevor Lawrence with good coaching will put a lot of people in good spots as long as you really understand making sure that you develop Trevor Lawrence in the manner in which you're able to. So if you get the same success that Baker Mayfield had, even though they had injuries with the Bucs, I like the Jaguars, but in a couple years, I think you can put like kind of tiers. The teams that are going to take more time, not instantly, will be the Raiders, the Saints, the Cowboys, and the Jets, because they got to figure out their quarterback spot. The teams better suited, I think, are going to be the Bears and the Jaguars. Maybe just an opportunity because they have more established quarterbacks.
Can we, Doc? The people want it. Can we get a
Duval?
Out of you?
Well, the funny part is that the mustache is growing, so I gotta just continue to kind of handle it a little bit more. Shad Khan and Tony Khan, who runs AEW, they run it over there. But things in Duval got to be a lot better because they are a shit show, and they're known for mismanagement and kind of the way they do things is ass backwards. But they got their guy. It's just I don't think that I like Doug Peterson, but man, they moved on pretty quickly, and that was a fall off from grace that I didn't expect. I like Coach Peterson. I like what he's got, but they got some talent there.
There's two more questions from the people here. Night Owl 1978 says, who are Doc's favorite edge prospects from this draft? I saw you tweeting a little bit about Mike Green. I saw you.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah, the edge prospects are solid. I look at it and I say Mike Green puts out great tape. I saw, Jack, you look at it from the perspective of winners. Jack Sawyer saw that Michigan was a football team that planted the flag in their situation, in their own building, and they went on and won. That's grit. That's interesting. That intrigues me. So early on, those two names, a name to pay attention to is edge rusher James Pierce from Tennessee. A lot of teams are getting mocked to the Eagles or the Chiefs at 31, 32. He could be somebody that's interesting. There's another name too that just jumped off the charts that was unbelievable as well in regards to his size. 6'6", 300-pounder Shamar Stewart stood out to me as well. I think that any of those guys, listen, that's what I can't wait to see the combine. I'm going to the combine. It's going to be great. I'm going to go out there and figure it out. Going to talk to
there too, Doc.
And the timing is perfect for me.
We'll see you there, Doc.
Yeah, you guys are going?
Yeah. We already got a hotel, but everything's booked. We were there last year. We're going this year. We've got a lot of things happening at the combine for the boys.
Oh, we can have a combine chat. Maybe we got to link up.
We will be live for some times too, so you have to stop by.
Okay. Are you going to be there Monday night?
No, we'll be there Thursday through Sunday.
Oh, you guys are going. So we're doing the opposite. So for media, what works for me is, and you guys did that last year. You guys went last year. I know that. Yep. I think we started to connect last year, knowing you guys. Did you guys do it last year?
Yeah, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah. Okay. So it's good. No, what I'm doing is I'm getting there Monday afternoon, and then we believe that tentatively the Lions may talk Tuesday or Wednesday, and so it works perfectly to talk to the coaches and general managers, and then Wednesday morning all the edge rushers will talk. So that works out perfectly, where I'm going to get all the media stuff and then get back home and sit down on the couch and just follow you guys and watch the film and do the reports there. So it works out perfectly for media, for me to go in the early part of the week, get all the info, talk to the players, talk to the coaches, and probably talk to Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, and get all the newsy stuff that I got to do. And then I'll let you guys and Christian do all the scouting. I love the scouting. It's great. I love your guys' questions. We're all in the early phase of looking at the tape. But for me, my role will be the salary cap, free agency, looking at which team, recapping the Lions. So that's my stuff. Christian is the draft guy who loves the tape and is like, hey, look at this guy, look at that guy. But I will throw this out there. What do you guys think? Do you want to be bold? I mean, clearly in all the mock drafts, as I'm scrolling up here, do you kind of move up and look at an Abdul Carter? Do you go up and try to trade for a Mason Graham? Do you take a splash and say, hey, let's be aggressive and get the best one? Most people rank Mikael Williams from Georgia. Dan and Brad love those guys from the SEC. A lot of people like his athleticism. Mikael Williams definitely jumps off on the tape here on my list. So that'll be something fun to talk about, is, do the Lions end up staying at 28? Do they package some picks to move up? They have moved up before. I'm all about one of those. I'm all about, listen, I know you guys are like, you can't get this guy. Brad can do whatever he wants. If there's a guy that they like and they love, who's to say they won't do it? Who's to say why not? But yeah, of course, the odds are long, and we all see the mock drafts and where they're going, but stuff happens. Little thing here, little thing there. He falls, rumors, blah, blah, blah. It'll be interesting to see, but that's the talk, man. Get the best edge prospect in here and figure it out, because, man, if Aiden stayed healthy and you had Davenport healthy, you might have been able to stop. Jaden Daniels.
Last question here. JJE says, do the Lions make a run at Darius Slay to come play for a year if they can't re-sign Carlton?
Yeah, I think that Darius Slay, you got the better version of him, younger and cheaper in Amik Robertson. So I like Darius Slay, but I would value Carlton Davis, younger, more athletic, taller, man-to-man coverage. Darius is great, but he's a little bit longer in the tooth. It's going to depend on what kind of money he's going to look for. So I would say the Lions could inquire, but I would be surprised if he comes back to Detroit. I would think that you would probably value Carlton Davis a little bit more than Darius Slay.
Well, we appreciate you, Doc, as always. Keep up the great work. It's, we'll find a way at some point we can link up for the combine at some point in both of our careers. We'll make it happen. I want to watch some ball with the Doc.
Well, next year maybe we're going the full week. I didn't even know they did stuff Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So maybe
we can still we'll talk that week of the combine from the hotel room that Wednesday. Maybe call in or whatever. We'll figure out how to have fun with the combine, and anything you guys need, we'll make it happen. Now, real fast, my last 60 seconds.
Yeah,
I do want to complain.
Okay,
what's on your mind?
And all of Detroit sports, you guys were all bricked up over seeing a shirtless Dan Campbell. So I did some research. I said, all right, y'all got bricked up seeing Dan with his lady. I said, okay, now you're going to put the Doc in a tough position. I'm not really bricked up over a shirtless Dan Campbell. So now I got to look at his wife. I said, I can't do that. I mean, I got to be respectful. So I said, okay, why is everybody posting this? So, okay, you guys and everybody that posted the shirtless Dan Campbell, let's have some class and say the first post, when you guys go to Holly Campbell's page and stalker, it's his 26-year anniversary. Congrats, man. Yeah, nobody shared the real information here.
Doc,
Great.
I don't like this. I don't like this take from you. I have a problem with it.
Dan
Good,
Campbell,
great picture.
26 years. Congratulations.
Great.
I wanted to post the first photo and not the
Listen.
second one. I don't need to see a shirtless Dan Campbell. I'm a guy. I don't like that.
Well, there may be girls that follow us too, Doc. We do not discriminate. We post for everyone. That was a great picture of Dan Campbell. A great throwback picture of Dan Campbell. Hey, our job. Hey, what does Pat McAfee say? Hashtag journalistic integrity. We post everything, Doc. You have to. Shirt off, shirt on, doesn't matter. It gets posted, Doc.
Okay. Yeah. It got posted by 15 accounts. I'm like,
who was the first
I don't want to be seeing that. I want to be seeing a whole bunch of other stuff. So I'm giving you a review as a guy who's a consumer of sports. I was not a fan of that particular post, knowing that potentially there was even more better information that you could have shared that was more positive and more unique,
Doc.
And
I'll
a little bit less. Like
215,000 people were a fan of that post.
So of your 200 people that saw that or whatever.
215,000. That's
how many people saw that?
215,000 views.
Hey, Boone posted a thirst trap, Doc.
Hey,
he couldn't help himself.
People love Dan Campbell. The people.
I can't argue that. The ladies, the people like Dan Campbell.
Go post it after this now.
He's a legend. Dan's a legend. I'm going to say that. But you could have then also said, hey, congrats. The missus and him have been together for a long time. Boys, you guys are doing great work. It's a tough time, but it's a fun time as well. Football never ends, man.
Hey, Doc, you know I love you. That was a fun time. I love
that was fun. I didn't even look at the numbers. Damn, 200,000. Maybe I got to start spending time stocking out Campbell's dinner. I don't need to. I'll let you guys do. I'll let the young kids do all that. I just share my opinion as I see it. I'm like, what the fuck? I don't want to see Dan shirtless.
The man is shirtless. He has who's the guy? Fabio or whatever. He has his hair and he's got a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. He has a dart hanging out of his mouth. Doc, you know what? You do an amazing job, Doc. 100%. You're my favorite follower in Detroit. That was a miss on you not posting that today.
That's the one thing. That's the only thing. I had my fill of that. I told you guys I don't search social media for reposting what other people already post. I'm just posting Lions information right to the people. Okay. So make sure you follow guys at Detroit Podcast and thank you humbly. I set big goals for myself this year. And one of them was crushing video numbers, putting out information that people liked, making sure that people valued the time that they spend at Detroit Podcast. They do. And then tomorrow is a humbling day, 600 episode. The 600th episode of Doc and Jock comes out. Wow, it started in September of 2013, and it's made my life tremendously better. My cousin Adam Strzezinski is a legend for co-hosting with me for 12 years, nonstop for 12 years, podcasting and to interact with you guys, to talk. I get genuinely excited. I get bricked up to get up here and talk shit. Now, you got 1 week. All right, whoever's doing your emotes, get mine up there by the combine, because if it's not up there, I'm going to no-show you. So you got 1 week, administrator. I gave you 2 weeks. I'm nice. But now you're on the clock. My pretty face, I'm breaking the news. I'm going to get an emote, guys. I'm going to make it happen. I don't care. Put my face on there so when I say something stupid, these people can react.
I don't hate it.
Next week, you got 7 days, administrator. Get off your ass and do something.
Interest goes up every day after.
Understood. Wow. That's John Maakaron, the one, the only.
Hey, he doesn't just run the Detroit Podcast. The man runs Crunch Time Sports.
Yeah, no, he's a what a legend. As always, brought to you guys by BetUS. Hey, what's going on there? It's Jeff Iafrate. Appreciate you for finishing the video. You can check out one of the videos here suggested or show support by commenting, liking, and subscribing. And buy your merchandise, officialctsports.com.